The elevator that didn't exist. The building only had 6 floors. Everyone who lived there knew that. It was one of the first things you learned when you moved in. A simple, straightforward, modern apartment complex. 6 floors, a lobby, and a basement parking garage. But one night, coming home late from work, the elevator I was in, it stopped at a floor that wasn't supposed to exist. The little screen above the door, which usually displayed a number from 1 to 6, went blank. And then, the doors slid open anyway. I'd moved into the apartment complex downtown just a few months prior. It was perfect for me. Modern, clean, and surprisingly quiet for being right in the heart of the city. It had everything I needed, and nothing I didn't. 6 floors of apartments, a single, surprisingly fast elevator, and a secure parking garage underneath. I lived on the 4th floor, right in the middle. The first few weeks were completely normal. I got into my routine. Wake up, go to work, come home, maybe hit the gym on the 1st floor. The elevator was just a part of that routine, a metal box that took me from point A to point B. But after about a month, it started acting strange. Nothing major at first, just little quirks. Sometimes it would pause for an extra second or two between floors, as if it was thinking. Other times, the lights inside would flicker for a moment, plunging the car into a brief, disorienting darkness before humming back to life. I figured it was just old wiring or a minor mechanical issue. It was an older building, despite the modern renovations. I didn't think much of it. I'd mention it to the building manager next time I saw him. Then one night, I was riding up to my floor, idly staring at the control panel like I always did. My eyes traced the familiar circular buttons. P for parking, L for lobby, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Standard. But that night, I noticed something I swear had never been there before. Tucked away just beneath the button for the 6th floor, there was another button. It wasn't round like the others. It was a small, blank, plastic square, the same color as the panel, almost perfectly camouflaged. There was no number on it, no symbol, no label at all. It was just there. I stared at it for the rest of the ride up. When I got to my apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I was sure it hadn't been there yesterday. The next day, my curiosity got the better of me. I caught the building manager, a gruff older man named Mr. Henderson, as he was watering the plants in the lobby. I asked him about the elevator, mentioning the strange pauses and flickering lights. He just nodded, saying he'd have maintenance. Take a look. Then I decided to push it. "Hey-ya!" said, trying to sound casual. "What's with that weird blank button at the bottom of the panel?" His friendly demeanor vanished. He stopped watering and stared at the elevator doors for a few seconds. A little too long for a simple question. His face was blank. Finally, he turned back to me, his eyes cold. "That button doesn't work," he said, his voice flat. "It's a defunct panel piece from an old model. Don't press it." And that was it. He didn't elaborate. He just picked up his watering can and walked away, leaving me standing there with more questions than answers. Don't press it. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command, and it made me want to press it more than ever. But I didn't. For a while at least, the manager's warning was unnerving enough to keep my curiosity in check. Life went on. The elevator continued its weird little glitches, but I got used to them. I avoided looking at the blank button, trying to pretend it didn't exist. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was just a piece of plastic, a relic of a past design. Still, every time I got into the elevator, my eyes were drawn to that spot below the number 6. It felt like it was watching me. About a week later, I was coming home late again. I was exhausted, juggling a bag of groceries and my work laptop. I managed to hit the button for the 4th floor and leaned back against the control panel, closing my eyes for a second. That's when I felt it. A distinct, tactile click from behind my shoulder. My eyes snapped open. I hadn't meant to, but my weight shifting against the panel had pressed the blank button. For a second, nothing happened. The elevator was still ascending. The number 2 lit up. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A false alarm. But then, the elevator shuddered to a halt between the 2nd and 3rd floors. The soft chime didn't sound. Instead, There was a low, grinding noise from below, like heavy gears turning after years of disuse. The car began to descend. I watched the illuminated numbers go down. 3, 2, Lobby. It didn't stop. Parking. It still didn't stop. We were going down, past the lowest known level of the building. My heart started hammering against my ribs. The digital display above the door, which normally showed the floor number, flickered and went completely black. I frantically stabbed at the button for my floor. The lobby button, the door open button. Nothing. They were all dead. The elevator kept moving downwards into darkness. Then, the black screen flickered back to life. But it didn't show a number. Red, digital letters slowly spelled out a single word I had never seen on any elevator panel before. Service. The grinding noise stopped. The car came to a smooth, final halt. A soft, chilling ding echoed in the silence, and the doors began to open. A wave of musty, cold air hit me, thick with the smell of dust and decay. The doors opened to a long, narrow hallway that stretched into gloom. It looked nothing like the rest of the building. The walls were concrete, with paint peeling off in large, leprous sheets. A few dim, caged bulbs hung from the low ceiling, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe and twist at the edge of my vision. Doors lined both sides of the hallway, old wooden doors with tarnished brass numbers that were too faded to read, and every single one of them was slightly ajar, just a crack. Just enough to see a sliver of darkness within each room. My feet felt glued to the floor. I stood there, half in and half out of the elevator, staring down this impossible corridor. And then I heard it, a sound that made the hair on my arms stand up. Whispering. It was faint at first, a dry, rustling sound, like leaves skittering across pavement. But it was coming from the hallway, not from one room. It seemed to be coming from all of them at once. A chorus of hushed, indistinct voices, overlapping and weaving together into a terrifying symphony. I couldn't make out any words, but the tone was urgent, conspiratorial. It felt ancient and wrong. My blood ran cold. I took a hesitant step back into the elevator, my hand fumbling for the door close button. That's when the elevator behind me let out another soft ding. The sound jolted me. The doors had started to close. Panic seized me. My mind screamed one word: run. I didn't run down the hallway. I launched myself back into the elevator car, scrambling to get away from that whispering corridor. I slammed my hand against the door open button, but it was too late. The doors slid shut with a heavy, final thud, missing my face by inches. The car jolted violently, and with a sound like a cable snapping, it shot upward at a terrifying speed. It wasn't a smooth ascent. It was a chaotic, rattling climb that threw me against the wall. Floors flew by on the display faster than I could read them. Then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The doors slid open. I was in the lobby. The lights were bright. The air was clean, and a couple was laughing by the mailboxes. Everything was normal. Shaking, I looked at the control panel. The buttons were all there. P, L, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the spot beneath the 6th floor, it was smooth, seamless metal. The blank button was gone. It was like it had never existed. I stumbled out of the elevator and practically ran to my apartment, locking the door behind me. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, on my way out there, was a new notice posted on the community board in the lobby. It was from the building management. It read, "Please be advised, due to necessary structural repairs, the old basement service level has been permanently sealed. Access is no longer possible." I asked a neighbor about it. They just gave me a confused look. "What service level?" they asked. "This building's always just had the parking garage. No one else remembered it. No one else saw the button. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. There are some doors that are closed for a reason, some floors that are hidden, and some places that are buried and best forgotten. If you want to hear more stories about the strange and unsettling places that hide just beneath the surface of our world, make sure you subscribe. Because you never know what you might find when you press the wrong button.